What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Probably a little bit better than this teacher who was filmed doing exercising the most cringe thing I've ever seen a math teacher or any teacher do. And I've seen a lot thanks to the Libs of TikTok Twitter account. But apparently a teacher decided to dance around in feathers and tomahawk war hooping and tomahawk chopping in class in Native American garb to teach her kids about TOA, which is a acronym for, mathematics, sine, cosine, I don't know, tangent, whatever. I forget it. I guess it wasn't really that effective. Plus geometry is pointless. Anyway, white teacher filmed whooping, war hooping, and tomahawk chopping in class in Native American garb. Good thing she was wearing her mask, though. Jesus, these people. Student says he filmed it. A Native American student filmed it, by the way, because he felt that bad behavior was being committed against him, and he had the right to record. A teacher's tasteless lesson plan is stirring up ire online after footage of her mocking Native American culture was shared on social media. Now, let me be clear. Normally, I'm against cancel culture, but if you watch the entirety of this video, it is appalling. Now, I don't think that her intent was to mock Native Americans, and I think that's the very important distinguishing factor here. A lot of people, even it's obviously it's the Daily Dot, which is a garbage website, but I mean, you don't know her intent. But this whole thing was going on for like 2 full cringeworthy minutes. Footage of the teacher identified as Candace Reed, high school teacher in California, yikes, was filmed by a student in her math class. According to numerous shares of the video on social media, the student began filming Reed after she pulled out a fake feather headdress and placed it on her head. According to the student, his footage began after several minutes of war hooping, tomahawk chopping had already passed. He reportedly chose to film her because he felt that a crime was being committed against him and he had the right to record. No. It was a crime for all of us to see this unbelievable cringe. Obviously, I don't think this teacher deserves to be fired for this, but yikes. Of course, the internet's going to ruin her life, I'm sure. You see the footage, which was shared in 4 parts on a Kaylee Brown's Instagram page for Corn Maiden Designs, begins after the teacher's cringeworthy antics are already well underway. The first clip sees her miming a chopping motion before beginning a thoroughly tone-deaf attempt at traditional Native American dance while repeatedly chanting TOA. TOA is a mnemonic device used to help students remember sine, cosine, and tangent. The 3 basic trig ratios. Oh yeah, it was trigonometry, not geometry. Sorry. Needed to solve missing angles in a right angle. Why the teacher chose to butcher Native American culture in her attempt to teach a mathematical concept is unclear. The second clip sees the teacher demeaning dance continue from atop a table at the back of the classroom, continuing to shout TOA in shrill, offensive tones. She stomps and jumps on the table to a few awkward laughs from her students. In general, her classroom appears immensely uncomfortable, with a few students visibly covering their heads and averting their gaze from her antics. Yeah, I would probably say I'm actually going to pull up the footage because I'm sure I can't play it because every time one of these videos goes viral, they get claimed. But I certainly can show a couple of screenshots, no doubt. So here we have from Grindface TV, who's probably paying this kid. You see her wearing leggings, dancing around. People, all the kids are masked, by the way, of course. Running, and this is 2 minutes just to teach TOA. And like, what is this maniac doing? Running around, hurting herself. I mean, on what planet did she think this was a good idea? Some of the replies, is this high school? This wouldn't be that weird if it was kindergarten. True. This is so messed up and disrespectful. It's hard to imagine that no one walked out. She was blatantly insulting the culture, ritual, heritage of indigenous people. Has this been reported? I don't know. Again, intent matters. It's obviously tone deaf. Unless you look at her internet search history, or like you go into her house and you find all sorts of anti-Native American stuff, you can't ascribe malice where, what is it, Hanlon's razor? You can't ascribe malice where, I don't know, idiocy is, how does that go? Where, you can't ascribe malice where, how does that go? I'm just going to look it up right now because I want to get it right. I don't want to be like Dave Rubin. Ascribe malice, right? Hanlon's razor. Never attribute to malice in which is adequately explained by stupidity. That's exactly what this is. The latter half of the second clip sees this degrading behavior continue as she appears to mimic a war chant before transitioning to an awkward skit involved rubbing her toe or stubbing her TOA and screaming in pain. The following two clips are much shorter than the first and see Reed transition from her more dramatic mockery of indigenous Americans into mockery of Native Americans' religion. In part 3, she sits on the edge of her desk and raises her hand to the water goddess, whom she asks to tell her in the secret Indian chant. Reed then bursts into laughter, calling the whole scene ridiculous. The final clip of the teacher transitioned from her conversation about the water goddess to one about the rock god. Wandering on the edge of the room, Reed announces that she ran into the rock god before carrying a handful of rocks painted by her children to the front of the room. Okay. Reactions to the clip were almost universally negative. People shared disgust and affront to the teacher's tone-deaf attempt at teaching moment, called the high school to fire her over behavior. I don't think she deserves to be fired. I think she probably is just an idiot, and just had no clue. You would think living in California, she would be more clued in to these type of things. A number of people pointed out that South California is home to numerous indigenous tribes and blasted the woman for neglecting to look outside of her cultural bubble. She is surrounded by Native American tribes here in Southern California. Okay. Maybe. Countless viewers have vowed to contact the high school about the footage. I don't think she deserves to be fired, but she sure is a moron. I mean, I don't really understand what she was thinking. If she thought, like, hey, here's a great idea. Yesterday, a Native American student filmed this video in his math class. After several minutes of the teacher's war whooping and tomahawk chopping, the student filmed because he felt, of course, they just have press, right? Like, I don't know. I don't think that, you want to talk about a teacher, covertly sliding in CRT into their lesson plan. Okay, we could talk about being fired. But it was really bad. The video was shared on Twitter. It has 2 million views. Another Twitter user writes, okay, so as a teacher, I was thinking this is probably some kind of lesson she's teaching to make engaging, culturally deaf for sure. Then I remembered SOH. She's trying to teach them a weird acronym for sine, cosine, tangent, and trig. Again, culturally deaf. Despite alleged educational purposes of this bizarre lesson, many people have taken to social media to share their outrage. Well, of course they're outraged. That's what social media does. This is just good, clean fun. I don't know about that. She's just not, I don't know. It's not very good. I'm not going to pretend that this is super offensive or the end of the world. This is what happens when incompetent teachers Google SOH Indian and decide to make a racist cosplay the focus of their trigonometry lesson. I mean, I don't know. Again, you can't, I mean, come on. I mean, some things are just, I mean, this woman is going to have to live with this for her entire life, following her around. And every class she I mean, certainly she'll never do this again. I can almost guarantee it. But I don't know. I don't know. Like, what are y'all getting worked up for? It's a teacher doing a gimmick in class and having a blast. I mean, it's like, Oh my God. Well, I hope you enjoyed this bit of comic relief on a Thursday. If you did, make sure you leave a like. And let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Fired or just idiotic mistake? We'll talk to you again real soon.